the inside story on the issues that affect you and your community. This is Local 12 Newsmakers.
2 weeks ago, the mayor of Shaoxing, China, handed off the flag of the World Choir Games to Gunther Titch, the president of Interculture, who in turn presented it to Cincinnati Mayor Mark Mallory. That exchange marked the ceremonial opening of preparations for the 6th World Choir Games right here in July 2012. Good morning and welcome to Local 12 Newsmakers. From July 4th to July 14th, 2012, the hills of Cincinnati will literally explode with a variety of choral music from every corner of the world. For a city that consciously decided to stake its first claim as a cultural center by organizing the May Festival in 1873, no place could be more appropriate.
For 11 days in July 2012, 20,000 participants and hundreds of thousands of spectators from more than 70 countries will descend upon Cincinnati, USA, making it the epicenter of international arts and culture during the 2012 World Choir Games.
I'm very excited. Yeah, very, very excited. This is huge. Like, I've never seen anything like this. So many choirs, so many different nations, just coming together, and I think we'll have an awesome time.
To discuss the potential of the World Choir Games, I am joined this morning by Cincinnati Mayor Mark Mallory and Dan Lincoln, the president of the Cincinnati USA Convention and Visitors Bureau, both relatively recently back from China. Welcome to Newsmakers.
Thank you very much.
This was pretty exciting. I mean, how large was the delegation, the Cincinnati delegation, that went over to the close of the choir games over in China, Mark?
Well, in all, there were about 200 Cincinnatians there.
Wow.
For a variety of purposes. Different groups went at different times, but it was a large group by delegation standards to be in China for what was a very exciting event. And I got back and I got all excited, and I keep telling people, this is huge. And you're going to hear us say that over and over and over again, but it's really the only way to describe it. This is a lot bigger than any of us anticipated. It's going to be great for Cincinnati.
Now, in China, we use those numbers with, 200 choruses, 20,000 participants, 200,000.
It's actually about 450 choruses in China.
450. Yeah. So I was just going to say, in China, was it that size? Was that same sort of thing?
It was actually much bigger than we anticipated. As the mayor said, when we knew the scope of this, obviously we've been working on this for about a year, but until you get there, touch it, feel it, experience it, you just really can't imagine the magnitude of this and the emotional impact of this. When you bring all these different countries from around the globe, different cultures, different attire, different languages, you saw 10,000 people singing the Hallelujah chorus in a communist country. You saw Iranian choir with the women dressed in the scarves and the robes singing in English the theme song from an American sitcom, Friends. Just a phenomenal experience, but much bigger, much better than we even imagined.
And there's really something about the way music translates across cultures. I mean, the words may be in English for an Iranian or in Russian for an American or whatever. It is pretty amazing the way people can communicate through music.
Well, it really is. And when there's a well-crafted song and a choir that really has their act together, that sings an emotional song, it doesn't matter the language that they're singing in. You feel that emotion, you react, you connect with that group and with that audience. And there was a lot of that going on in China.
A lot of the people and we're going to see a little bit more of some things here as we go along, but a lot of the choirs are made up by some young people, but there are people of all ages who are involved in these choirs, right? At least that looked like the case to me as I saw.
Oh, absolutely. You have people from all walks of life. You have people of various ages, various backgrounds. The beauty about putting together a choir is the only requirement is that you have to be able to sing.
Right, which is why I'm not in one.
I'm not going to be in one, trust me. I'll be far away from the singing, but it's an opportunity for people from all walks of life to come together and experience something that's truly transformational.
There's this cultural side, there's the human side, there's also a very practical pragmatic economic side to this whole thing. And Dan, you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, UC did an economic impact study about a month or two ago and found out that this is going to generate about $73.5 million in direct and indirect spending in the Cincinnati region, from the staging, the facilities, the transportation, lighting, sound, all the different things that go on. You have to feed 20, 30,000 people coming in, plus all the spectators that come in. So when you think of just the jobs that are created or maintained to service that in the hotels, in the restaurants, in the attractions, in the museums. And Dan, the interesting thing with this, unlike the Olympics, this is fashioned much like the Olympics. The opening and closing ceremonies are the 2 weeks. But unlike the traditional Olympics, all the choirs are required to go out and do engagement concerts. So this economic impact is going to spread to Westchester. You'll see Tibetan monks in Hyde Park Square. You're going to see them in Northern Kentucky. You're going to see them everywhere, much like we have the pianos coming out now.
Right. And the other thing is, besides all the people who come, stay in the hotels, buy food, all of those things, it seems to me this is an incredible opportunity for the next 2 years to use this to raise the image of Cincinnati around the world. I mean, let's face it, you go around the world, people don't necessarily know much about Cincinnati. This has all kinds of side effects, it seems to me, that we can take advantage of.
Well, we're going to spend the next 2 years really getting the word out about how great Cincinnati is to an international audience in a way that we've never had the opportunity before. 20,000 direct participants and 200,000 spectators from around the world are going to learn about Cincinnati. They're going to come to Cincinnati. They're going to experience our great hospitality and our great arts and cultural scene and our wonderful downtown. And then for years after that, we're going to be known as the city that put on the best World Choir Games in the history of the event.
And might point out, this is the first time the World Choir Games have been held in North America, right?
That's right.
Am I correct on that? So
That's
this is a chance for us to establish ourselves as a leader in a whole continent.
That's right, and I think it's something that we as Cincinnatians need to be proud of. As much as we want to tell the nation and create the buzz globally, we also have to feel proud about ourselves as a city. Sometimes we're our own worst enemies. This is something that we ought to be proud about, the fact that we're the first time in the U.S. here in Cincinnati that the whole world will come here in 2 years. This is huge for us, and we should celebrate that.
We can show some video here from Shaoxing, where Cincinnati was introduced to the people who were at the event. You can see it here. This is actually taken with a flip camera and the stage. So the perspective is a little odd here, so if the viewers can just stick with it. But the excitement in that audience, it seemed a lot like the Olympics, and there are all the images that we take for granted every day, but being projected to people around the world.
Absolutely, and let's bring this event down to scale for just a second. Let's say that in your house, your spouse tells you that you're going to be receiving 20 people from around the world that you're going to host in your house for 2 weeks. Imagine the planning that you are going to put into place. I mean, you're going to spruce up your house. You're going to make sure that it's nice and clean. You're going to make sure that your kids are on their best behavior and are dressed in the best way possible. You're going to make sure that there are people at your house that speak other languages so that when it's time to talk, you can actually talk. You're going to roll out the red carpet. That's what we have to do on the scale of the entire city. We've got to make sure the city is prepared to receive that number of people from around the world.
And I want to say, you're the mayor of the city, so you talk in those terms, but it's really a regional phenomenon here.
Right.
When I say Cincinnati, unless I specifically say city of Cincinnati, we're talking about a metropolitan region, and it's for all of the people in the area to really get involved. Dan, what are some of the practical ways that we need people to get involved so that we can do all these things to get ready?
Well, there's an organizing committee that's already been started and set up over the last 6, 7, 8 months. It's headed up by Nick Veer, who many people remember was on City Council, headed up the U.S. Olympic bid. That organizing committee is forming itself.
Nick knows that. Nick knows how to talk.
Nick knows how to run this.
That's right.
That's right.
Nick finally got the Olympics.
Yeah, he got the Olympics. That's right. And a lot of that organizing committee went with us to Shaoxing, so we now know what we're dealing with. We are putting together committees from safety, security, volunteers, protocol, translators, people that will help provide hospitality to the choirs, the international judges, the families that come in. We've had conversations with a number of local corporations about how they can help sponsor and help these kids and their families as they come in to Cincinnati and in a foreign country. So there's hundreds of ways that people can get involved.
Will, if people wanted to get involved, and as this gears up, and it's going to have to gear up fairly quick, I mean, 2012 seems like a long way away, but it's not when you're planning something this complicated. How would people get in touch with somebody and actually make something happen, begin to get involved?
Probably the best way to start is go to the website, 2012worldchoirgames.com. Very easy.
Okay.
We're also on Twitter and Facebook and everything else, but I would start there. And as this committee forms and the various committee chairs form, we're capturing that information of people that are interested in any of those specific areas, and then we'll get somebody to get back to them and get them involved.
Mm-hmm. Mark, what is it that you think, why did we end up with this? I mean, and there were competitors. Mm-hmm. What was it that, and Dan was saying sometimes we don't recognize our own strengths or we don't talk out loud about them enough. What do you think tipped the scales for us?
Well, I think that Interculture, which is the group that puts the World Choir Games together, they were looking for a number of things. They were looking for cities that had transportation infrastructure so that obviously people could get there. They were looking for cities that had a lot of performance halls. We have tons of them. They were looking for cities that were proud of their history and their heritage, and particularly their music culture. And the fact that we have the oldest choral organization going in the United States, I think really sort of capped things off for us. And you know, they came here and we wowed them, as Dan is accustomed to doing. And you know, that whole team does a really good job of explaining to people why they should bring their convention or event to Cincinnati, and I think we just knocked it out of the park with them.
I know one of the things that this past year in Leadership Cincinnati, that we had a team that organized around saying, okay, these are coming in 2012, how do we get ready and use them as a way to promote global business and global connections? Mm-hmm. You know, the people who get plugged into this really get excited about it. I mean, it's really kind of interesting to watch how all of this is happening from the cultural side, from the business side, from all sorts of angles.
There are so many opportunities, Dan, for us to put Cincinnati on a national stage, a global stage. The mayor led an economic development trade mission. I would let him talk about that. But this was a catalyst to expose Cincinnati to business leaders and people that can actually come here, visit, and do business and spend money in this city.
Yeah, I mean, there was a huge economic component to this. Carla Walker, who used to be my chief of staff, who went out on her own and now is the head of Think Big Strategies consulting company, worked with the Chinese Chamber of Commerce to put together a presentation of the state of Ohio and the city of Cincinnati to 75 Chinese business leaders. The Chamber of Commerce was involved. There were several individuals who were in business in Cincinnati who were involved, who all made presentations on why Cincinnati is a great place to do business.
You know, it's important to remember, I mean, that Chinese economy is one of the fastest growing economies in the world. And you know, there's always sort of been this dream of the China market because it's so big. Mm-hmm. But things are changing, and the opportunities to make real connections are now, and get in still on the front end of all of that.
Well, and the key to doing business, particularly with the Chinese, is to develop relationships, develop friendships. They tend to do business with people they're actually friends with. So people sometimes question, why has the mayor been to China 4 times and is going to go back again? Well, because we have to cultivate those relationships in order for that to result in business being done with the city.
And I have to say, having been to China only once in my life, it is an incredibly fascinating place, and the connection, the ability to connect with people casually is amazing. They want to connect with Americans. They want to connect with English speakers.
Very warm. They love Americans.
Right.
A lot of the misconceptions that we tend to have, because we don't see a whole lot on the media, just completely blown out. There's still thousands of years, literally, of culture. The city that we were in, Shaoxing, at the opening of the games was celebrating its 2,500th anniversary.
Right.
But the westernization that's happened there, the cars and the fashions and everything else.
It's almost frightening.
Oh yeah.
My wife was in our sister city in China back in 1989, was bragging about our 200th anniversary the year before, and they said, "Oh yeah, we're 2,000 years old."
A little different.
Thank you very much. We're going to be back on this topic a lot over the next 2 years because this has so many implications. So
thank you for being here.
Thanks,
thank you. Stay tuned. After the break, we shift to a documentary about immigration that will get a special screening in Cincinnati this week. But before that, one more performance from the World Choir Games.
Hanging here has become a symbol of racial tensions in Prince William County.
Immigration remains a hot-button issue across the
Atmosphere
area.
of fear and violence.
I want you to get rid of every one of those illegals. And I said, how do you expect us to get rid of them? And he said to me, you put them in a boxcar and you ship them out.
Welcome back. We are in the midst of a heated and angry debate over immigration in the United States. Historically, there is nothing new about this. In the 1840s, America and Cincinnati were racked by angry and sometimes violent anti-immigrant mobs. Their targets were particularly German-speaking Catholics and the Irish, who were thought to be incapable of ever becoming fully functioning American citizens. In 2010, the descendants of earlier immigrants are now leading the charge against different groups using a different set of rhetoric.
Illegal.
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 Illegal aliens.
If y'all haven't took a look outside, please do. We are out here and we ain't going nowhere.
God instituted this government. This is part of his plan. Those leaders aren't just there for a whim. They're there because God has a purpose here.
We need all of your support. We got a tough election. This election that is on the local level.
It was about an election, honey. It was about an election. And it got out of hand.
On Wednesday evening at the Esquire Theater in Clifton, a new documentary entitled 9500 Liberty, which explores the corrosive impact of this debate on our political life, will be screened this week in Cincinnati. To discuss the film, I am joined this morning by Leo Pierson, the Ohio Director of Civil Rights for the League of United Latin American Citizens, LULAC, and Mr. Pierson also teaches sociology at Cincinnati State, and Jason Riveiro, the State Director of LULAC. Welcome to Newsmakers.
Thank
Jason,
you,
welcome back.
Thank you, Dan.
This film, is this an independent, I wasn't quite sure how to describe it, independent documentary that is being screened in sort of art theaters around the country? Or did it have a major run at one point and just never got to Cincinnati? What's sort of going on with this film?
Well, the film is an independent film. A couple of my friends actually produced the film in Prince William County, Virginia. And I think it's really actually picked up steam because of the immigration debate that's opened up over Arizona, which has brought the immigration question back onto the national stage. It's actually shown in Cincinnati on a couple different occasions, and there have been people that have been showing it in their households. This is the first major showing in Cincinnati of the film.
Okay. Jason, for you, when you saw this film, I mean, you live in Cincinnati, you work in Ohio.
Right.
What was your reaction?
It's almost as if they're filming what's going on here in Cincinnati. It's a very similar situation in which it's a non-traditional, I guess, destination for a lot of new immigrants that are coming in, and it sparked a lot of debate and similar characters, the protagonist, antagonist, same talk, same rhetoric, And what's more important, I guess, is that the debate is coming from these little places that we don't really traditionally think about.
You know, one of the things that strikes me, and that's why I end it with the woman's comment, was that, you know, this started as part of an election process, and then it got out of hand. I mean, in terms of the level of the rhetoric and the feelings that engenders. And that strikes me that politics, both political parties do this. They find wedge issues, and the wedge issues change from year to year, but they find that wedge issue that they can rev people up, and it isn't really about discussing the issue, it's about manipulating the issue, oftentimes it seems to me.
Sure, it's a very visceral reaction that you get from people on this issue. Immigration is a very complex situation, and I mean, I think it's important to get the facts out. For example, here in Ohio, less than 1% of Ohio's population is undocumented. So, you know, when people talk about immigration as an invasion or things like that, what we're really talking about is 99% of everybody that's in Ohio is here because they're supposed to be. And it's the facts like that that really start to cool the debate. But those facts don't get out because you're right, politicians tend to use it as a cynical wedge issue.
Well, one of the things too, there was a study, I think it came out in December of last year, studying metropolitan regions across the country, and 25 top largest metropolitan regions. And Cincinnati, in terms of foreign-born population, had the lowest of all foreign-born population in the metropolitan region. So when we see the discussion in Arizona, or Texas, or Southern California, it has a certain dynamic. But what's interesting to me is sometimes that dynamic has spread everywhere, even though the reality isn't spread everywhere.
Yeah.
No, it's funny, I lived in Mexico, I was raised in Texas, and you know, you see it there firsthand, and you see the intertwining of different populations coming together, and I come here to Ohio, and it's very curious to me the people that are actually talking about this issue who really don't have any idea of immigration, or maybe many of them maybe have never even left this country before, and they want to make this their number one issue. So for us, we try to focus on issues of education, and we have some great accomplishments, and unfortunately this is kind of where the conversation is being steered towards, and I think there's more important things, at least here in Ohio, for us to focus on.
And if people come to the film on Wednesday night, I mean, one approach could be everybody who sort of agrees with you could come.
Sure.
But I would hope that other people would come and find this a way to try to engage about the real issues that are there.
Sure, and I think that's in fact what we want to happen. I mean, we can't have a substantive conversation about immigration with just one side of the debate there. What we're looking to do is get people with different views on the issue to actually sit down and be able to talk to each other in a way that isn't visceral, that's not highly emotive, where people aren't yelling at each other. Once we can bring down the level of emotions on the issue, people can generally have a good conversation just about over anything.
Both of you involved with LULAC. Does the question of undocumented, gets translated to illegals, but undocumented, is this a legitimate conversation in your mind? Is this something that the nation has a right to debate and talk about?
Yeah, I think we all agree with that, and that's, I think, the big misconception, even representing LULAC, is that we are an open border organization, and that we encourage people to cross the border illegally, and that's not the case at all. But we do understand that there's two sides to the story, and that we do need to address the border security, but at the same time, deporting 10 million people is not, it's not logical. And so,
and the image used there by that same woman, where somebody told her to put it in people in boxcars. I mean, that conjures up other sets of images from 20th century history. That's scary.
Sure, absolutely. I mean, you ask, is it a legitimate debate? It absolutely is a legitimate debate. Immigration has gone from being isolated to very few states to literally you can find immigrants all across the landscape of the United States at this point. Not in large portions. Still, 63% of all undocumented immigrants are to be found in really only 4 states in the country, and those are mostly in the Southwest. So it's a legitimate debate to have, but just like all debates, they need to be had in a way that is more conducive to getting to some of the more the deeper solutions, so to speak.
So that the discussion can be productive rather than just lighting people on fire.
Absolutely.
And really just making it difficult.
Absolutely, and politically, I mean, that's what we need, because we're trying to get to policy decisions, right, that are conducive for the entire country.
That's the small p, political, rather than partisan, which so often gets confused with those two. If you'd like to see 9500 Liberty, it will have a special screening this Wednesday night at the Esquire Theater in Clifton at 7:30. There'll be an opportunity to discuss the film afterwards, and if it might be a good idea to RSVP, just because the theater isn't that big, and you could call, and I don't have this on the screen, 513-621-4020, 621-4020, which is the American Jewish Committee, and they'll take that. So thank you for making Newsmakers part of your Sunday morning. We close this morning with a clip from 9500 Liberty.
Learn how to speak English. I speak English just fine. You do, but these people don't. I'm sorry, y'all? Because there are 12 million illegals in this country.
Do I have to carry this around everywhere that I go because of the way that I look? I mean, I don't think that I should.
Racial profiling, that is, taking action against someone because of their race, creed, or color, is wrong. It's against federal law, it's against our policy.
It is the first step to taking back our community.